Right, welcome back, and I hope that you've been following the conversation so far. We're talking about state capture. Is it a new phenomenon? Apparently it isn't. What does it do to democracy? And when is it good and when is it bad? We're exploring that with our panel and hopefully with you as well. We're going to start looking at your tweets as well. But we've got an audience here in Woodmead and they're going to start asking some questions now. And we start with Flo Letwaba and table number... can't remember which table it is. Flo, if you could stand up, we'll get a microphone to you.
Thanks. It's table number 8, actually.
There you go.
Flo Letwaba, Eyewitness News. The question is, how many state-owned companies have the Guptas invested in or shown interest in? And the question then on the back of state capture then is, should there then be a limit to that?
Okay. Nazim?
Sorry, I didn't really hear the question.
Oh, okay. The question is, how many... Say it again, Flo. How many companies does the
Yes, how many companies are the Guptas invested in or have interest in? And also just on the back of that, when you're talking about state capture, should there then be a limit in terms of that?
I find the question a little bit interesting in a way. As business people, we be involved in several sectors. So the sectors we're involved in are mining, which I raised first because it's our biggest income generator. Now, on mining, not a single of our mining license has been issued by the Department of Mineral Resources. Every single mining license has been commercially negotiated and bought from somebody else. In terms of should there be a limit, as business people, unfortunately, I think our motive is profit, so we'll try and grow. But so long as we do it on an arm's length basis and through transparency, I think it's a very, very good thing. Now, the question you ask also brings me to maybe respond a little bit to the Mail and Guardian piece, which I think is what's prompting your question. The Mail and Guardian did this very big, fantastic expose, if I can call it in air quotes, around the linkages to two of the institutions. But throughout the story, they were at pains to say, and please read the story very clearly, they're saying, but there was nothing wrong done by anybody on any of those boards. And again, our challenge to anybody is show us one thing that we've done wrong. And not a single person has come up with a single item where we've done anything wrong. Simply because we are good business people, I would hope, that compete fairly and equally in the same terrain as everybody else. But again, I'm going to say to you, if you ask me that question, Eskom, if the optimum deal closes, we have 5% of the supply. 95% of the supply is elsewhere. And I wish somebody from Eskom was here. 95% of the supply is with others at a very, very advantageous pricing level to us.
Nazim, question. Mark Pomensky, he sits on the Eskom board and he also sits on Oak Bay board. Is that healthy to have a director sitting in a company that he supplies product to?
You're asking a question to me that shouldn't be asked to me, but I think in any good company, you're always going to find people with conflicts. I don't think anybody's going to be without conflicts. And the question I think you should ask, really, and ask it of Mark, when there's a discussion at Oak Bay about Eskom, have you recused yourself? Now, I can answer that from our side. He recuses himself immediately. From the Eskom side, you should ask that question. Because I would say to you, and I'm glad I have Leon on the panel, that happens on most boards. When that conflict comes up, it's not unique to us. The director would then recuse himself from the discussion and the discussion continues. It's not an unusual step.
Okay, all right. So we're going to come to you, Mzwanele, just now, because you fly your party flag very proudly. And just before that, I would like us to hear, and on the desk, I would like you to push up the fader for the clip that's playing. And this is the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Gwede Mantashe, speaking about this subject.
On the alleged business influence on the state, the NCNC had frank and robust discussion on the serious allegations surrounding the Gupta family and its purported influence in the appointment of ministers, their deputies, and other positions in key state-owned entities in their interest. Such actions can have no place in the ANC and its government, as they have the potential to undermine and erode the credibility and confidence of our people in the leadership of the organization, the ANC and its government. We reject the notion of any business of family groups seeking such influence over the ANC with the contempt it deserves, while also recognizing the need to act to protect the integrity of our government and our organization. The appointment of ministers and deputy ministers is the sole prerogative of the President of the Republic. In line with the Constitution, to this end, the ANC continues to confirm its full confidence in our President.
Yes, state. All right, so that's the Secretary General of the African National Congress expressing his thoughts about influence on individuals. Well, one individual who's part of the African National Congress and has some very strong views about these issues is Mzwanele Manyi. I just want to get your thoughts. You've heard quite a bit already now, and Pinky Khoabane says that this is nothing new. Louw says that it's a good thing to try and capture the state, and yet your Secretary General says we've got to be careful, otherwise we're going to be into a mafia state zone.
Yeah. No, look, I think it's alarmist to say we've got a state capture in this country. And I think it's important for us, first of all, to say what is the state? So that when we say state capture, we know what is captured. And I think it would be very unfortunate if the sum total of understanding of the subject is going to be limited to the Guptas. That would be very unfortunate. A state is a far bigger animal. You've got the whole government with some 34 odd departments. Has that been captured? You've got the whole parliament that took a massive decision yesterday. Was that the parliament's decision or was it a decision coming from elsewhere? You've got the Concord, which has taken a massive decision a few days ago. Was it their decision? Was it a decision elsewhere? So this concept has got condescending elements. It's a concept that says everybody else is a puppet and there are big powers behind the scenes. That's what this is about. That is a real state capture. So I don't think we have that kind of a thing in this country, and I don't think we should confuse state capture with influence. What Leon is probably talking about is influence, not state capture. State capture is a dirty term, is a term that is really condescending. You can't have a situation where when a government pronounces, you can't even be sure whether is it their decision or is it a decision that's coming from a dark room. I think, I think the narrative actually seeks to create some obscurity. What the Guptas have done in this country, and I must make this one point about the Guptas. I think if the Guptas are doing anything that is incorrect, the full might of the law must come to bear if the Guptas are doing anything wrong. And those that have got information, the SG has opened the process. Now I want to put that aside and say, let's look at it differently. What have these guys, what have they done, these Guptas? These Guptas have actually done what the ANC has been talking about all these years about disrupting the monopoly capital. This is what these guys have done. The only problem is that how they did it. They probably did it by themselves and whatever. What they should have done, if I were to give them public advice, is that they should do deals with the locals, as it were. And when they disrupt this monopoly capital, they must not disrupt it only with Tutuzani. They must find some other groupings and disrupt it to those groupings so that the economic cake is shared. We can't have a situation where it's, if it's not the monopoly capital, it's just them alone. It's got to be them with the locals. So if I were to give them advice, and I think that's the biggest crime that they have done, is to disrupt the economy. But just look at what has happened to Eskom after what has happened. Eskom today is actually reflecting a much better income statement because of the change, because the big animal that was there has been shifted. So I think for me, the big challenge this country faces is monopoly capital. That must be disrupted. And I'm saying to
disruption
the
might be good, but you know, some serious allegations have been made. Your own Deputy Finance Minister said he was offered the job of the Minister of Finance. Then there was a reshuffle after he turned it down. That kind of capture, if it did happen, I mean, we've got to take him at his word. It hasn't been tested in court, we don't know. That kind of capture, if it did happen, surely is really crossing the line.
But Peter, maybe if I could come in here, I think it's much better that I respond to you on that question.
All right, but I just want to get his thought from a party, and then I'll get your thoughts now.
No, I don't speak for the party.
Okay, but for you as an individual.
I speak for Progressive Professionals Forum.
Yeah.
I respect the process that the SG has set up, and I think if we were to start commenting too much about it, we'll mess up the process.
Okay.
So for me, I think I'm just going to talk broad principles,
Right.
that anyone, whoever you are, if you break the law must take its full course. Those that have got details about their dealings with the Guptas, the SG has opened that process, and I would encourage people to take evidence and everything and take it to the SG.
Okay.
So I don't want to have that discussion here because there is a
Fair
clear
enough.
process to deal with it.
Nazim?
I was going to make 2 points to you, Peter,
Yeah.
and I support my colleague completely. I think we must allow the process to go its way. Whatever we've done wrong, we must take ownership for, and I'm confident enough to say we've done nothing wrong on these issues. You know, I want to go way back now. For many, many years, it was repeated as fact that we had offered the sports minister the role, or the shareholder has done that. The sports minister announced, I think, a month or so ago, that never happened. We've made the same point about the deputy finance minister. In fact, I think when the question first came to us, we provided copies of the passport of Mr. Atul Gupta. He wasn't in the country at the time. But still, it's living its life in the media. So allow the process to continue. I think we can provide
So
the
it will be
evidence
cleared up,
to
that's what you're
challenge
saying.
that.
Okay.
We can provide the evidence to challenge that. Neither Mr. Ajay Gupta or Mr. Atul Gupta met with the deputy finance.
Okay. Mr. Motsoeneng, some people are looking at this and they see the new age and they see the SABC. Has the SABC been captured by the new age?
No, very interesting. You know, English is English. Is how you interpret English, even the capturing word. But you know, what is key here, I think we are missing a point. You know, it's good to talk, but what are the benefits for people of South Africa, this talk of capturing? What are we dealing with here? But Nazim knows there is no way anyone can capture Hlaudi. I have my own ethics and morale, and I influence myself. I don't influence by other people. He knows that as business people, any business people they approach, example SABC, I say to him, no. If it's yes, it will be yes. And for me, I don't give many answers. It's yes or no. That is how I operate. And also, you know, the issue that we need to deal with, I don't think we should deal with politics here. I'm not here to deal with politics. I'm not a politician. But in all these SOEs, what kind of leaders do we have within those SOEs? Because that is critical. If you have yes men, yes women, any business people, they will influence or capture those individuals within the organization. And who's capturing those individuals? Example, take your SABC. You have someone who has been doing business for more than 20 years. For me, that is capturing certain state SOEs. And when you ask the question, why do we have this company and it's the only company who's doing business? It's because, it's a contract. But when you check the contract, it has only starting date. It doesn't have ending date. So you have a starting date, which means you allow business people to dictate a project. To say, we as business people will take 10 years to finalize your project. We have changed that at the SABC. When you hear this halabaloo about the SABC, about Hlaudi, because people know Hlaudi is Hlaudi. And what is important, even at the SABC, the board, they will tell you, I'm not a yes man. If I believe this is wrong, I can't do it. No, my moral, my ethics, I will do if I believe this is right. If the board or whoever has influenced me, I will own up. Because it's me, it's not the board. Because normally, the executives, we as the officials, they give you mandate. They said to you, go and deliver on 1, 2, 3. They are not saying that you should mess up the process. When it comes to the Guptas, they have been approaching me several times, looking for partnership, like other business people. I said, no. In this one, it's no. And other people, they come, talk about certain individual. You know this name dropping. Talking about Lituli House example. To say someone in Lituli is saying 1, 2, 3. And I ask them, I know Lituli as the building. Who's Lituli? Tell me who's Lituli. They will never tell you because it's name dropping. They believe that when they come to you as a leader, they talk about Lituli, you'll do what they're saying you should do. Business people, now it's elections time. People will come to say you are in court with them. And these are business people. They will come to say, hey man, it's elections time now. We need to our own different political parties. And these are people who belong from different political parties. Now we need to contribute. And we are in court with these people. And they will say, no, you know, I come from here. If you know yourself, simple, no.
Okay.
So for me, what I'm saying, it depends on the caliber of leadership, of individuals within certain organization. There is no way that anyone can capture. And when we decide on business example, I don't decide whether it's Gupta, whether the son of the president is part. What we check is whether they meet the requirements. But the evergreen contracts, what we're not dealing with here, especially the evergreen contracts, you have many business people from outside South Africa. They supply technology tools, example. You don't have any company who produce such technology within South Africa. What we need to say with these companies that we do business for 30 years, 20 years with them, is invest in South Africa. Let us produce technology here so that we create jobs for South Africans, so that we empower our own people. Example, you have the policy within certain organization. If you are at entrance level, you come with your own business at entry level, you introduce yourselves. These people who have been doing business with SABC example for 30 years, they don't want to see this new entrance because they guard against what they have been doing, because they know now if you allow this, now you limit their opportunity to do business with SABC. That is what we are guarding against. And at the SABC, that is not happening. Example, just the lawyers. The CFO is there. I ask a simple question. Why at the SABC, you have people who have been doing business with SABC for 10 years? You have many lawyers, example. They said to you, no, they are not on our database. The database is closed for 5 years. I'm just giving you an example. I said, no. They said, no, it's policy of the SABC. I said, who came with policy? It's us. If it's us, let's change the policy. So that anyone who comes from tertiary level, they enter into that profession. They want to do business with the SABC. We should be flexible. They should be able to do business with SABC. They should not wait for 5 years, which means if they wait for 5 years, they are doomed.
Okay, so key to this for you is the individuals, the leadership within these organizations, particularly SOEs. They're the ones that get captured, and so they must be the ones that guard against this kind of influence.
You see, I think, Jimmy, hey man, who are you now these days? I think Mr. Manyi did explain about this. I don't want to use this capturing because I don't think it is a South African word. But I think influencing, example, for me, if you appoint me, like others people, they appoint Hlaudi because they believe Hlaudi doesn't have a metric, and they believe they can influence me, they are in trouble. Because I'm not influenced. And what I'm saying here, people that I work with, they know you can't influence me. What I'm just saying is people need to have ethics and morale. But you know, if you know your job, you won't be influenced by individuals because it is not a favor you deserve. And if you deserve, you'll stand for what you believe in. So what I'm saying, all people, they should not use other people's name. Even if people said, no, hey, you know what, someone up there said you should do this. If you know it's wrong, wrong is wrong. You can't do it.
Say no. Okay. Let's go back to the tables, and I want to get these two together. Is this Rayo Mputle, table number 9?
Good morning to the panel. I believe that state capture can only happen if individuals are corrupt. Now, President Zuma is one, but we have to look at the fact that every other government official is corrupt and cannot always be 100% clean. A prime example would be Mcebisi Jonas. Can we really trust him with what he has been saying now, looking at his previously that he had been accused of corruption? Thank you.
All right. Who's your question to?
I would like broadly Pinky and Ndate Aubrey Matshiqi to answer it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So that's the one question. So you're convinced everyone is corrupt. She's convinced everyone is corrupt. Not necessarily 100% of the time, but they are corrupt. And can we even trust Mcebisi Jonas? That's her concern. Aviwe Matleke, table number 10.
Good morning, panel. My name is Aviwe Matleke from the TNA Cadet School. My question is to any of you. If state capture really is an endemic, with some describing it as a cancer, would we say that it involves many players? So it's not just the Guptas that are in the wrong, but would you say that state capture is taken over by other players as well? Thank you.
Okay, I think some of that question has been answered already, but let's, I think, Dr. Aubrey and Sis Pinky, you've been asked this question about, is everyone corrupt? If not 100% of the time, but, and I suppose it's a testament to the kind of narrative that's playing out if she's concerned that there's corruption everywhere that she looks. Your thoughts, very briefly?
Could I just go back to the eyewitness news question before?
Yes.
My question really to the lady that stood up from eyewitness news, asking whether the Guptas, how many companies, tenders, literally, they have in state-owned enterprises. Do you concern yourself with other businesses in terms of how much influence and how many tenders they get? That's one. Then to the young lady, I have no idea where she gets her research from, that everybody's corrupt, and I'm not able to answer that. But yes, it's a narrative that's out there, but there's no real research. It's what probably what she reads.
Aubrey?
Well, I believe corruption is endemic, but that's not the same as saying everyone is corrupt. And the question you should ask is whether it has become systemic too. In other words, has it become the dominant culture in the state? Just about the Guptas, if everything that is being alleged against the Guptas is true, I have two things to say about that. First of all, there would be the tip of the iceberg, because the problem of capture by dominant economic and business interests in South Africa is much bigger than the Guptas. And the second thing is, if everything alleged against them is true, maybe they are guilty of what I would call vulgar displays of power. But yes, countries do become susceptible to capture when corruption has become endemic or systemic, or when countries are going through a crisis, like, let's say, an economic crisis. Now, here we are fearing the possibility of a downgrade to junk status. And what that may create is a susceptibility to the imposition of policy measures from outside. So it's quite possible that if we're not careful, key policy measures will be dictated to this country from outside by entities such as, for instance, ratings agencies.
Okay, all right. Govan Whittles, table number 8.
Okay, hi, my name is Govan Whittles from Eyewitness News. I'd just like to speak about what Mr. Howard was speaking about with the recusal of board members, and you're saying that this conflict happens and it's not necessarily a problem if that person recuses his or herself. Is it ethical for business people to have personal relationships with board members or members of SOE boards, even if those board members recuse themselves from discussions when the board is actually meeting, but maintain a personal relationship with the business people who are in business with the SOE. Thank you.
Okay, Nazim?
Thanks, Governor. I can see that this is very quickly becoming an EWN session, so very good question. Very good. I think, let's rather talk about ethics and morality, and my colleague on the left here, I want to correct him before I come to your answer. None of the negotiations done with anybody in any entity is done by the Guptas. They are shareholders. Our business is run by CEOs who do all the negotiations. In the case of the SABC, if I have captured the SABC, it was my doing, my hand, because the relationship is at my level with the SABC. So the Guptas are actually shareholders who sit in the background. We do the running of the business. So let me come to your question. Ethics and morality, in my mind, are really about a personal issue, and it dictates every single decision you take. It's got nothing to do with friendships. I could say to you, I have friendships across lots of businesses. I could literally say to you that, let me use Eskom. Brian Molefe and I studied together at Wits Business School. It doesn't mean for 1 minute that I can put anything over Brian. If any of you know Brian, he's one of the best CEOs around, one of the toughest people around. And in fact, he was head of the PIC when we bought the Shiva uranium mine and told us to get lost when we went to him for funding. So, ethics and morality has got nothing to do with personal relationships. It's about how you conduct your business.
I suppose transparency is the key. Thank you, Khoabane. One question, and it's an interesting one for me anyway. So during the Broederbond era, the Afrikaans push was about labor, our people, the English killed us, so it's our turn, it's our chance. And I would suggest maybe that it wasn't really frowned upon, except from that bourgeoisie element. Are we going through the same thing now? That black business people, we're not talking about them, but maybe they're also wielding this kind of influence that we're talking about and laying at the table of the Guptas. Are there black business is doing the same kind of capture or influence, inverted commas?
Well, look, Peter, we are in it's 22 years now, is it, since our democracy, and we've had political power. We now need economic power. So somehow something must give. We are no longer going, and you can see all these hashtags must fall. People are impatient. The ANC must make sure that the people get economic power. I mean, the inequality, the poverty in this country is just immense. And something must happen. If the black business people who are pushing and influencing to get the economy running through the majority of our society, let that happen. As Mzwanele said, the biggest problem, perhaps, for the Guptas is that they are seen to be doing this with just one person. They need to expand. This is what is required in this country to break the white monopoly capital. I mean, when Oxfam says Oppenheimer and Rupert alone own 50% of the country's wealth, that's obscene. We can't allow that. Something must give.
Okay. Leon, what's the difference between before 94 and post 94?
Well, not much. In fact, one of the things that makes me very frustrated is that a lot of my work when I was opposing apartheid has remained unchanged. I just recycle the same arguments against the same attempt to capture. But let me make a couple of points. Firstly, that Oxfam number is nonsense, but that's a different issue. The degree to which it's nonsense is actually quite extreme.
But these guys are rich.
Yes, you know how rich the Oxfam management are who say it. They're billionaires. But let me just deal with something else. Aubrey made the point that capture has different dimensions. One of the forms of capture that has taken place in South Africa that has gone virtually uncriticized is capture of government by the executive of government. You mentioned the word the state within a state. Let me just give you one example, and I'm using one of many. The Financial Services Board. I bet there's no one in this room who can name one single member of the Financial Services Board. The Financial Services Board is a group of mysterious people who have captured power over the financial sector. They make whatever law they like under their legislation. Parliament, the legislative branch of government, has been rendered redundant. The legislature, the judiciary, the courts have been rendered redundant. Here is a group of mysterious, unknown, secret people who make laws governing the most important part of the economy. They implement the laws, they police the laws, they enforce the laws, they have their own tribunals and ombuds which they adjudicate. They impose fines called penalties, and they keep the money. They do all of the functions of government in smoke-free rooms behind closed doors in secret. Parliament can't do that. If Parliament wants to make a law, or if the courts want to adjudicate, they have to do it according to all sorts of complex checks and balances and constitutional procedures. That's one of many forms of capture, not by business, not by the teachers' union over the education system, not by civil society, not by the Guptas, not by anyone else, but by mysterious, secret, unknown board of people sitting somewhere in Pretoria. I bet no one knows where their office is on the over here. So these are probably the most powerful people in South Africa, possibly more powerful than the president. So yes, there are many forms of capture, but let me make this really important point. Whether we call it capture or we call it influence is not the issue. Everybody is free to try to influence the government, including the Guptas, including New Age, including SABC, including the Helen Suzman Foundation, whoever. That's, for many of us, your job. That's what we're there to do. The issue is government itself. Parliament, the legislature, used to pass over 100 laws a year. They now pass less than 10. Where are the laws being made? We all know that many, many laws are being made. They're no longer being made by the legislature. They're being made by the executive. Mysterious, secret, unknown people who are unanswerable, unaccountable, unelected are actually running the country's government. So what you want to do is, if you want to capture the state, you actually don't have to go to the high-profile, visible, prominent people. You actually just have to cultivate a private relationship with some mysterious, secret, unknown official in government somewhere. That is actually how a lot of it is done. And so, let me repeat. The problem is government. Government must not let itself be captured. Parliament, the legislature, the elected people have to take back the legislative lawmaking function from Pretoria. Laws are meant to be made in Cape Town, not in Pretoria. Laws are meant to be adjudicated in the courts, not by secret, mysterious tribunals and ombuds in the executive. So the capture is the executive. Then there are the business people and the trade unions and civil society and media and all sorts of others try to influence the course of events, which is fine. The problem is the government allowing them to do so.
Okay, Mr. Motsoeneng.
Now, I think I take offense on what Mr. Louw is saying. I think here we are not politicians, because I have a problem about people who talk about politics. I think you need to leave politics to politicians. And when we talk about the constitution of this country, I mean, people fought for this country. You have this constitution that you are talking about today. You are trying to defend it. Actually, when some of you, we were part of the problems, and you don't even appreciate what is happening. And we need to say this. You know, there is this view amongst certain people, white people in this case, who believe that if you're a black man, you can't run a big company. And we need to deal with these issues. And as long as you are a black man, you can't run the country. As long as you don't have those qualifications, because even black people now, they are using qualification. It's different, Baba. If you are a leader, you are a leader. It's different from having the qualification and leading. Those are two different animals. And we are also always encouraging people to empower themselves, to educate themselves, which is key. But I don't want to sit here and someone criticize people who fought about this country. And they need to appreciate the role of the ruling party. And I'm not representing the ruling party, but I take offense when someone criticizes people who fought, including some of the liberations movement, the PAC and others. Those people, they fought for this country. But when it comes to the Constitutional Court example, the Constitutional Court is there to guide the citizen of this country. It doesn't matter who you are. It is to them to say, here you are wrong, and if you are wrong, you can't repeat the same thing. If you go to court, what is the reason for some of us who are in court? We understand that why we are in court, and we will respect the finality of the courts. But we go to the court because democratically, those courts are there to guide the citizens. If you can go against the decision of the court, it will be a different matter. Let's take the latest court matters about the president of South Africa. And what happened yesterday in Parliament. The court guides the Parliament and the citizen to say, this is how you should interpret it. And go and interpret it and implement measures to deal with all those issues. They did not find anyone wrong because their role is to advise. And people of South Africa, certain people with their own interpretation because it's English, they interpret it differently. They have the right. We also interpret it differently. So let's agree. But I don't want to sit here where people are criticizing the democratical people who are elected. And actually, we should leave politicians to debate in Parliament. Let's deal with issues that we are supposed to deal with.
Okay. On that note, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Jane, Mduduzi, and Makhabu.